Echoes from the distant past, the first Filipinos. Long before any maps showed these islands, people lived here. They arrived in waves, sailing across vast oceans. These were the Austronesians, brave seafarers. They settled along coasts and rivers, finding fertile lands. They brought with them their languages, their tools, and their ways of life. The islands were not empty. They were slowly being filled with communities. These early Filipinos were skilled boat builders and navigators. They understood the stars and the currents of the sea. This knowledge was vital for their survival and for trade. These communities were called barangays. A barangay was often a small village, sometimes just a few families. Each barangay was led by a datu, a chieftain. The datu was respected, he was a leader in war and a judge in peace. Society was layered, with nobles, freemen, and dependents. Life was governed by customs and traditions passed down through generations. These traditions were unwritten laws, but everyone knew them. They guided daily life, from farming to fishing, from marriage to burial. These early societies were already quite complex. The early Filipinos had rich spiritual beliefs. They revered nature spirits, Anitos and Bathala, the supreme creator. They had rituals for planting, for harvesting, for healing, and for death. Shamans, often women called babaylan or katalonan, acted as intermediaries with the spirit world. They performed ceremonies and offered guidance. Trade was also important. They bartered goods with neighboring islands and even with traders from China, Vietnam, and Siam. Gold, pearls, and forest products were exchanged for porcelain, silk, and beads, showing an early connection to a wider Asian world. This pre-colonial Philippines was a tapestry of diverse cultures. Each island, sometimes each valley, had its own distinct group. They spoke different languages and had unique customs. There were the Ifugao in the mountains, famous for their rice terraces. There were the seafaring Samabajao in the south. There were many, many more, each contributing to the rich mosaic of what would become the Filipino identity. This diversity was a strength, a testament to the adaptability of people. It was a vibrant world, existing long before the first European ships appeared on the horizon, bringing with them immense and lasting change. 3 centuries under a foreign flag, the Spanish era. In 1521, tall ships with white sails arrived. They were led by Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer sailing for Spain. He landed on Homonhon, then later reached Cebu. This was the first recorded contact with Europeans. Magellan sought spices and a new route to the east. He also sought to spread Christianity. He befriended some local leaders like Raja Humabon of Cebu. Many were baptized, marking the start of a new spiritual chapter. However, Magellan met his end in Mactan, defeated by Lapu-Lapu, a chieftain who resisted foreign influence. Despite Magellan's death, Spain did not forget these islands. In 1565, Miguel López de Legazpi arrived. He successfully established the first permanent Spanish settlement in Cebu. Soon after, he moved to Manila and declared it the capital of the new Spanish colony. For 333 years, the Philippines was under Spanish rule. This long period brought profound changes. The Spanish unified many of the scattered islands under one administration. They introduced new laws, a new system of government, and a new religion that would shape the soul of the nation. The most significant change was the introduction of Roman Catholicism. Spanish friars worked tirelessly to convert the indigenous population. Churches were built in almost every town, often grand structures that dominated the landscape. Fiestas celebrating patron saints became a central part of Filipino life. The new faith blended with old beliefs, creating a unique folk Catholicism. Education was also introduced, primarily through religious orders. Schools and universities were established, though access was often limited. The Spanish language also began to spread, especially among the elite. The galleon trade between Manila and Acapulco, Mexico, became a vital economic link. For over 2 centuries, ships laden with Asian goods sailed to the Americas. Silver from Mexico flowed back to Asia. This trade brought wealth to some in Manila, but did not always benefit the entire archipelago. It also isolated the Philippines from its Asian neighbors, reorienting its focus towards the West. Spanish rule created a new social hierarchy, with Spanish-born peninsulares at the top. This long period of colonization deeply transformed Filipino culture, society, and identity. New masters, new wars, America, and Japan. The late 19th century saw Filipinos rising against Spanish rule. The Philippine Revolution began in 1896. Independence was declared on June 12, 1898. But a new power was emerging, the United States. America had defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War. Spain sold the Philippines to the United States for $20 million. Filipinos felt betrayed. They had fought for freedom, not for a new colonizer. The Philippine-American War erupted, a bitter and costly conflict. It lasted for several years with significant loss of life. The Americans eventually established control. They introduced their own systems. Public education became widespread, with English as the medium of instruction. This had a lasting impact on Filipino language and culture. They built roads, bridges, and hospitals. They introduced concepts of democracy and self-government, albeit gradually. Filipinos were given more roles in administration. A new generation of Filipinos grew up learning American ideals and ways. This period was one of significant modernization and westernization, preparing the country for eventual self-rule. This American interlude was violently interrupted. In December 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Soon after, Japanese forces invaded the Philippines. The country became a battleground in World War II. American and Filipino forces fought bravely but were overwhelmed. The Bataan Death March became a symbol of Japanese cruelty. For 3 years, the Philippines endured a harsh Japanese occupation. Food was scarce, and freedoms were suppressed. Many Filipinos joined guerrilla movements resisting the invaders. This period was marked by suffering, courage, and resilience. The war ended in 1945, with the Americans returning to liberate the islands. Manila was devastated, one of the most heavily damaged Allied capitals. The Japanese occupation, though relatively short, left deep scars. It also, paradoxically, fueled the desire for full independence. The experience of war and resistance strengthened national unity. The American period brought education and democratic institutions. The Japanese period brought hardship but also a renewed sense of Filipino identity and a stronger resolve to be truly sovereign. Both periods profoundly shaped the path to modern Philippines. A nation forged in struggle towards a modern Philippines. The Philippines finally gained full independence on July 4, 1946. The war had left the country in ruins. Rebuilding was a monumental task. The new republic faced many challenges. There were economic difficulties and political instabilities. But the spirit of the Filipino people was strong. They were determined to build a new nation from the ashes of war. Early leaders worked to establish a functioning democracy. They focused on restoring infrastructure and reviving the economy. This was a period of great hope and great effort. Over the following decades, the Philippines experienced periods of growth and also times of turmoil. The country grappled with issues like land reform, corruption, and insurgency. There were moments when democracy seemed fragile. The martial law period under Ferdinand Marcos, from 1972 to 1981, was a particularly dark chapter. Freedoms were curtailed, and many suffered. However, the desire for democracy remained alive. The People Power Revolution in 1986, a peaceful uprising, toppled the dictatorship. It showed the world the power of ordinary citizens united for change. Since the restoration of democracy, the Philippines has continued its journey of development. The economy has grown, driven by sectors like services, remittances from overseas Filipino workers, and manufacturing. Education levels have risen. The country has become more connected to the global community. Filipino culture, a vibrant mix of indigenous, Asian, Spanish, and American influences, continues to flourish. Music, art, film, and literature from the Philippines are gaining international recognition. The resilience of the Filipino people remains a defining characteristic. Today, the Philippines is a dynamic and youthful democracy in Southeast Asia. It is a nation of over 110 million people, spread across more than 7,000 islands. It faces ongoing challenges, such as poverty, inequality, and environmental concerns. Yet, it is also a country full of potential and optimism. Filipinos are known for their warmth, hospitality, and strong family ties. The journey through time has been long and often difficult, but it has forged a nation with a unique identity, a rich history, and a hopeful future, constantly striving and evolving.